One of the things that Maddie's successes kind of caused this week was the way that I understand it, and I'm sure JW will know it backwards. There's a rule on WTA Tour that 250s can only have one top 10 player per week.
It's crazy.
And so they signed they signed Jess Pegula as their top 10 player, and then they had a deal in place, which is done at every tournament with 4 or 5 people. You make the best version of your field you can, and people get appearance fees. We've done an entire show on it. Check out the Money episode to get more in depth on it from the back catalog. But they did a deal with Maddie when she was 20 in the world, and then she wins the Australian, and who gets the Austin event gets completely screwed. They've sold sponsorships. Fans have come because they've been advertising Maddy Keys. She wins the Australian Open, and the people that signed her 6 months ago can't take advantage of this next thing. Now, listen, back in the day, I remember the ATP, Mattress Mac wanted to invest in tennis and bought the year-end finals and brought it, and they made it as hard as they possibly could for him. Now we have Brian Sheffield, who wants to support an emerging market, my hometown of Austin, Texas, and buys a license 2 years ago, 250 open week, great. They throw San Diego 500 on top of him last year without even telling him. And so therefore he can only have one top 10 player. Like, how are you going to make a play to grow something and make it awesome if they're just randomly throwing weeks on top of yours, and then you bought the license under one set of things and then it changes? And now San Diego left after a year, so they got all the benefit. They gave it up after a year. Octagon, I think, owns it. They go sell it to someone else. So it's in Mexico this year. Who the hell knows where it's next year? And Austin gets screwed for actually trying to build a field that people want to see. What am I missing, JW?
Tennis is going to tennis. And yeah, it's exactly what you said. Here you've got Madison Keys, fresh off winning her first major. Great story, as you saw. She's doing all these interviews. She's everywhere. She's got this currency. She's coming to us. Oh, wait a second. She's now in the top 10, and there's this rule. This is tennis sort of own goaling once again. I will give you the rationale for the other side, which is, you know, when you buy a business class ticket, you expect a little bit more perks than if you'd gone cheap and paid for coach, right? You want to get early boarding and you want more leg room. A 500 event has paid about 2.5 times the financial commitment of a 250. How are we going to protect this 500? I'm not defending it. This is just, I'm giving you both sides of the argument that we need to create these mechanisms and these levers so that the people investing the most money get the most business class amenities. I mean, I don't know how deep you want to go into this.
Yeah.
You mentioned Octagon. Little strange that the same agencies that are representing the players here are also owning these events and on the board passing rules like this.
Oh, no way. You don't think there should be conflicts of interest in every single part of tennis with agencies and players and coaches? And no, I promise that I'm acting completely independently of all of my own interests outside of this meeting right now. Welcome to tennis.
This is, welcome to tennis is right. And the pity that you say is, what a great opportunity. What a great way. I mean, here you have this American star. It's a great story. She's coming back to the United States. You've got to figure out a way. There has to be some sort of loophole so that she's allowed to play and doesn't have to pass on this commitment.
So the difference is you use the business class seat. That's fine. It'd be like buying an airline, but having to provide both. We choose what seat we get, right? Technically, they always tell us whenever there's a problem with the tours, well, you're independent contractors. You're independent contractors. Until you make an independent deal with a tournament and then you fly under our rules. Like, I mean, it's so two-handed, and I'm sure there's a technical piece where they're going to be fine. But simply, if it's within the original entry list, so let's call it 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 3 months, you have to be like, how is he ever again going to do a deal with someone who's top 30 in the world? Just to get screwed over if it doesn't work. You're literally, you're weakening the toughest professional tournament business even more. You're diluting it. And to give you a personal example of how they screw over the 250s over and over. But then we also go, oh, why are all the tournaments leaving? Why are there less tournaments in America now than there were before? Well, because it used to be you played 13, the Super 9s, the Slams, and then you could pick any 5. And who does that help? American tournaments. Indianapolis that used to exist back in the day because Andre Agassi could go there and play. I could go there and play. I could choose to do that. Real life example, so the other thing with a 500 is they are mandatory. 250s are minimally mandatory, right? You have to play 1 or 2. I don't know what the rule is now, but the mandatory things for 250s is you basically aren't required to play them if you're a top player. Whereas 500s, you have to play a minimum number of 500 tournaments. So 2010, they changed the rule. And I'm 4 or 5, 3, 4, 5, whatever in the world. And I play Brisbane because I want to get some matches in before Australia. I win Brisbane. I also have an endorsement deal with SAP. So I have to play the SAP Open. Sorry, I get to play the SAP Open in early February. And I make the finals. Okay. So we're 2 weeks into February. And for the rest of the year, I'm only allowed to count. I'm only allowed to count 2 250s for the year. So I've already got a win and a final in 250s. So then Atlanta comes to me. Los Angeles comes to me. All of these American tournaments come to me and they want to survive. Indianapolis will come to me and they want to make a deal to play the tournament. My reality at that point is whatever number they offer me versus I have to win the entire event to get a single point. And that's the offset. My 250s were done 5 or 6 weeks into the year. How are we going to support the smaller markets and the smaller tournaments? It is an absolute, it's an act of idiocy that we're having this conversation and that a tournament that's 4 weeks from now, which, by the way, there was this whole plan to have Maddie go walk out and do this publicity thing where she's rebuilding courts of the YMCA that Sheffield was going to cover. Now what do? You bring the neck. I mean, it's so, yeah, like you said, tennis is going to tennis. It's so dumb and short-sighted. Always. We're always so dumb and short-sighted.
Your macro point, I think, is the real one here, which is what does any business, sports or non-sports, what do they need? They need investors willing to throw money at it, enthusiastic about parking their money here. There are so many people. Not everyone can pay $6 billion for a pro team. There are so many people who want to be in the sports space. They love tennis. You see them at the US Open, whether it's Mattress Mac or Mark Ein in DC. There are dozens of these people, and you hear a rule like this, and they say, you know what am I doing? This is so ass backwards. Why am I going to park my money here? And my real fear, I mean, it's a pity for Maddie. There's probably some antitrust violation. I don't know if she's now her market is now being constricted. There are broader issues, but the big issue to me is just it's stuff like this that scares off people that would like to park money in tennis if it were more sane.
Not to mention like our lazy followers, headlines, and I don't mean ours like served. I mean tennis. What do you see? You see doping headlines for melatonin. You see Maddie getting kicked out of a tournament because of her successes. Like it's just the low hanging fruit of dumb fuckery that we seem to be attracted to in tennis too often.
Well, and it's, when you look at the social media for the Open, for the Austin Open, they're literally tracking Maddie's like trip through the finals, semifinals, and they're posting about it. They're like, oh, Austin Open commit, Madison Keys on to the finals. And then they have a huge congratulations for her when she wins on the 25th. And then 3 days later, it's an ATX Open alert. This is all in their like own social media. Oh, since she had an historic win, she can't come. And they had to explain it all, right? And then when you look at their website, they had to scrub her from the entire website, right? And she was front and center with Jess Pegula. And that's an expense that you don't think about. Not only are they promoting tennis, promoting other events, right? Then they have to scrub everything and start over.
Not to mention when you're scheduling something and you're a top player, I don't know if he's going over to the Middle East this month for those big tournaments or not. I would consider it a massive mental lift to do it. I don't know where maybe she's like, I have the momentum, I'm just going to go rip it. And maybe she's like, I need to breathe after this emotional roller coaster that I've been on over the last month. I don't know where they're going to end up. But there is value in if she doesn't go to the Middle East, would be completely understandable and probably against the rules. When she comes back before Indian Wells, she's now going, hey, I haven't actually played any match reps in over a month. I'd like to go to a 250 because I'd like to get a couple of matches in. There is value in playing an off-field event before going into Indian Wells, Miami, to reset the deck on a smaller scale. Like I'm going to restart here in a comfortable place, a smaller environment before I get to Indian Wells. If I'm Bjorn Frantangelo, I'm going, yeah, that seems like a pretty responsible idea. And again, this is all based on the hypothetical of I don't know if she's going there or there, but like there is value. Players want matches. I played Brisbane before the Australian Open because I thought I'd get at least 3 or 4 matches, and that is really valuable. And players should be able to choose how they want to negotiate their schedule. You want us to be in peak performance, then allow us to make the decisions that we think will get us to peak performance. Not that I'm pissed about it.